Crowd pleaser here from Games Point Blank. Bethesda has revealed that Redfall will be launching on Xbox consoles capped at 30 frames per second quality mode, and that a 60 frames per second performance mode will come to the game at a later date. Is this genuinely something that will affect gamers, even though Game Pass is a reality for a lot of subscribers? Will people play the game anyway? We're gonna talk about this now. Let me put you on to game.
60 frames not being ready at launch. It sent the Xbox world into a frenzy. People were complaining. It seemed like it was the worst thing ever, specifically for the game. Now, what I was thinking was, these are the hardcore gamers that really care about 60 frames, that really care about the highest quality. Those hardcore gamers are the ones with the loudest voices. So it's not really the majority of gamers that are complaining. It's just the hardcore. So I don't really think that this is as big a deal as people made it out to be.
It's easy to already knock Xbox when they're down because a lot of the bad publicity and a lot of the things that they put themselves into, them mentioning this 12-month window of games and their biggest game, Starfield, being pushed out of that 12-month window. Now, when we think about a game like Redfall and the decision has to be made, okay, do we want to keep 60 frames a second in this game and potentially delay our second and arguably one of two big first-party games that we have this year? I think that would also have been a bad look. So they are making that compromise and saying, hey, if we can't have 60 frames a second, but we can still release this game when we said it was going to be released within that 12-month window, that is definitely a win for Microsoft. Although, like you said, that hardcore, that initial strong minority on the internet who's huffing and puffing over this 60 frames a second are gonna be upset.
If it really bothered you that much, just hold off on the game. And then when the 60 frames performance mode is ready, then you could download it then. I think that's one thing that people really didn't take into consideration when the news came out, and they just got upset. And I don't really think the game deserved that type of anger.
After the initial shock of the 30 frames per second launch and the 60 frames per second being added at a later date, you know, that initial shock is just very jarring because you're thinking of a generation. You know, we've had 60 frames per second for a lot of games, even as far back as last gen, and it's one of those things, especially for first-person shooters, that you're seeing and you're just like, we need it for that stability, for that fluid motion, and for that twitch heavy movement. But then I thought about Redfall and at least what they showed us. Redfall doesn't have that twitch heavy movement that's needed in games like Call of Duty, that's needed in games like Halo. This is a PvE specific game, so we're fighting AI always. I don't necessarily think, once again, that this is going to be as bad as it's being made out to be.
This is not a competitive game. This is strictly single player co-op PvE, player versus environment. So you don't really need these frames to be better at the game. It's most likely not gonna make the game bad. So most gamers who realize that, they'll probably see the light at the end of the tunnel and be like, hey, 30 frames is not gonna kill this game. I'll still play it anyway. But then again, the hardcore that just wants everything the best will be like, no, I'll wait.
It's actually a very slow-paced game, at least once again from the trailers that we have seen. It seems like you're slowly moving through places. Yeah, you do have battles. You're battling these enemies, and sure, it looks like it should be moving a bit faster, but I definitely don't think that this is gonna affect my personal decision to play the game when it releases. But once again, this is coming from someone who has Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. But think about the consumers who do not have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Do you think they would be buying the game anyway? Do you think they're gonna pay that $69.99 to play it with this news? Or like you said, it's only gonna be that small hardcore that kind of avoids it?
That's the thing we don't know. The hardcore that really care about the performance, if they don't have Game Pass, I don't think they're gonna go out and buy it. I think that would definitely cut that amount of people who would buy it in half. Maybe half will, maybe half won't. So that's just a small fraction of Xbox only, the hardcore players.
I think when we're talking about what made it bad or what makes this announcement kind of jarring is not necessarily the game itself. Arkane Studios is a very trustworthy developer. Bethesda, obviously a great company to work for and make games with, and they have a great track record anyway. Do I expect this game to be bad? Absolutely not. Arkane has never given us a reason to believe that their games will be bad. I don't think there's anything we can do to stop that from happening, but at the very least, I want to believe that that same hardcore audience are also the people who have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So will they really say, hey, I'm going to boycott this game and not play it because it's 30 frames, although I can technically play it with Game Pass Ultimate on day one without any kind of issue? I have a hard time believing it. I think a lot of these same people who are knocking it are going to try it anyway, if anything else, just to say, I hate this game, I was right, 30 frames a second is awful.
I agree. I mean, Xbox found themselves between a rock and a hard place. They had to make the decision. They need a first-person game now. They said this was gonna come out. The team couldn't make that performance mode happen, so they gotta release it anyway. I'm pretty sure they're okay with it because they figured this game is running good. Even though it's 30 frames, this runs great. It's a good game. So it's not gonna hurt it in terms of quality. So release it anyway. And then for those people who need it, that extra performance, you know, it'll come out later. These hardcore gamers that are calling for delays, what's the point of delaying it? If you don't want to play it on day one, you don't have to. It's already going to be there for you whenever you decide to play it. So calling for delays, being mad, you know, I'm not going to play now, it makes no sense.
Now, let us know what you think. Is this decision from Arkane and Microsoft to not drop the game with 60 frames a second going to affect the decision of you playing when it launches? Are you going to vote with your time and say, hey, 60 frames a second is a bare minimum for me, so I'm going to skip out on this game until it gets patched in? Or are you going to boycott the game altogether? Let us know in the comments. We look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, let's game on.
If you liked our content, mash that like button, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more content, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.